I need to like chop off my hair. It's too hot. Woo! Hello! Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If we haven't met already, hello, hi, the name's Quinn. It's very nice to meet you. Today I'm going to do a kind of a little sit down video, talk with you guys about my financial history, the basis of my money knowledge and like how I got to where I am today, the mistakes I've made and what I've learned from them, and the mistakes that I'm probably still currently making and I'm always learning. A student of life, as we always like to say. So without further ado, go ahead and grab for yourself a snack or a tasty beverage. I have a hot coffee. For some reason, oh, it's so far away. For some reason decided to make a hot coffee instead of iced because I'm a doofus and didn't prep it last night. So let's get right into it. Okay, so I have some notes on my phone to try to keep me on track so that way this isn't a super long video, but we're just gonna start kind of from the beginning. So I was born in not that far away. Basically my family, just so that way the history of what I'm used to with money is that my family is middle class. We've kind of fluctuated up and down in the whole stream of middle class, but we've consistently kind of stayed middle class. Kind of like everybody else in the world. We were a little affected by the recession that happened in 2008. That was during some very formative times of me like understanding money and how it works. So that affected me a lot when I was growing up and through high school and to the beginning of college. So in high school, my senior year, I was 17 and I just got a job at Chick-fil-A. Yes, the obsession started there. Surprisingly enough, had never gone before then. Now I am obsessed. You guys know. Okay, I had to open my door a bit because I got so warm in here. So I worked at that Chick-fil-A for 3 years. I managed to move up from just, you know, basic trainee. I moved up from just like working the cashier into being a shift lead throughout those 3 years. I was like a 19-year-old manager of a bunch of kids running a Chick-fil-A. So that was crazy. If you want to hear stories about my years at Chick-fil-A, your girl's got plenty. But basically, when I was working there, I was making more than minimum wage, which at the time was, I believe, like $10. I just reached into $10 right before I left. So I was making more than that. And I, as you guys know, love giving gifts. I didn't have bills at the time because towards the beginning of it, I wasn't paying for school yet because I just barely like halfway through my Chick-fil-A career started going to school. Wasn't paying for it yet, didn't have a car loan yet. I was looking at cars, so I just had all this money and I was buying food for every single person. It was amazing. I made so much friends by buying them Taco Bell. It was great. I also was just buying a bunch of clothes all the time. Like, I loved shopping. Retail therapy was my life. So, although I was making a lot of money, I wasn't really saving much. I didn't quite learn yet how to budget. My parents tried, bless their soul, they tried so hard to get me to learn how to budget. Wasn't doing it. I was spending a lot of money on gas because at the time, when I started going to school, it was 30 minutes like south of where I live. So I started spending money on gas, was driving my brother to school. So that was basically the only bills that I had, was like everything that I was making was being spent on food and gas. So since I was making more money than my friends were at the time, because we were all, you know, working together at Chick-fil-A, my Lit-fil-A gang, I was happy to be able to buy people food if they needed. If I was happy to be the one who drove us all to like events that we were going to use my car to go to Six Flags, of course, I have the seats for it. Like, I'll pay for the gas. It's great, it's fine. I would go and hang out with friends after work. I will bring the snacks. You know, you're letting me come to your house to hang out, I'm gonna bring the snacks. Like, that was my deal. And then I started realizing that like I was subconsciously getting taken advantage of. Nobody was really outright like trying to take advantage of me, but it got brought to my attention one day. So I have a friend who still does this to this day. I just don't think he realizes that he does this. But us and a group of friends were gonna go get pizza. The guy behind the counter was like, oh, sorry, we can't split like one pizza across like 8 cards. So, I mean, if you guys, like, he's like joking, right? He's like, if you guys, like, whoever makes the most money, just Venmo that person. I didn't say anything. My friend turns to me and says, she makes the most money, so she can pay. And I was like, I mean, you're right. Probably was gonna offer, but you didn't have to offer for me. And then I realized that's how it was. That's how I realized. I became very aware of the fact that, like, anytime we were in a group setting and I was there and this friend was there, he would be very much just be like, oh, it's fine. Like, she can pay. She likes to pay. Like, oh, it's fine. She can drive. We can take her car. And I'm like, I'm not offering. My car's a mess. I can barely sit in it right now. Like, no. And so I started realizing that I need to cut back and kind of control my spending a bit more then. The other thing that made me realize that I needed to control my spending is when my card got overdrafted. I became, oh my goodness, it's still like embarrassing to think of because I think it happened twice. The time when I was 18, my bank account got overdrafted by $200. Twice. This came from like overspending. I didn't have anything set up yet to make it to where like it wouldn't happen and it would just get denied. Like, everything would just go through and then there'd be overdraft fees on top of that. So I would go and get coffee and food with friends, or I would go and decide that I wanted to buy another dress from Forever 21, and then next thing I know, my bank account is negative $200. And that was rough. That was a really hard time for me. So both of those events combined of realizing that people think I can pay for everything and then realizing that I am paying for too many things because now I have a negative account really had me start like closing down on how much I was spending. It was crazy. It was rough. It was a hard time for me because then I started going to school, started going to college. I started gaining my degree in graphic design, again at this tiny little school, super cute, but it is 30 minutes away from me. Also at that time that I started going to school, I think maybe a few months into it, I started working at the restaurant that I work at now, which is 30 minutes north of me. So I would wake up in the morning, because I think at that time I also started getting a second job because I realized I needed more money because I'm driving around so much. And then I had a car. See, a lot of things were happening at once in 1 year. So I went to school, got a new job, and then got my first car. This first car was this tiny little Chevy Sonic. I could reach across with my little 5-foot wingspan and open up the passenger door. Super tiny. 11 days later, I crashed it. I remember thinking to myself like, oh, how crazy, all these like stories of 16-year-old girls. I was 18 at the time. It's like all these stories of like these 16-year-old girls getting their first car and then crashing it in a week. Haha, how silly. Crashes it 11 days later. But since the insurance that we had at the time basically was like, we'll pay for the amount of the car is worth, and since I crashed it so soon to buying it, they basically paid off the entirety of what the loan was worth at that time. So that was great. Didn't have to worry about that loan anymore. But now I had to get a new car, and that is the car that I have now. So I was 19, got this new car. This is the first big money mistake that I got, because I got a brand new SUV. It is a Kia Sorento. It's big, it's hunky, it's gorgeous. I love it. I can fit so much stuff into it. It has great gas mileage, but I'm still paying for a new car. And from what I read, Kias do not last very long if you don't take amazing care of it, and I don't really take amazing care of my car. I'm trying to, which is why I have this car maintenance cash envelope, so that way I can remember that I need to spend this money that I'm saving to take care of my car. So, little life goals there, life lessons that we learned. Don't buy a new car, especially if it costs so much, especially when you're 19, okay? And you're not ready for some big life decisions like that. So all of those things, now I had a car payment, now I was going to school, I was driving around so much, I got a second job, and that second job was right by my house. So that's when I started saving the 10% of all my paychecks, because I realized I needed a savings account. Before, I just had everything in my checking account, and I was like, as long as there's a comma, I'm good. But then, you know, life happens, and events happen that I wanted to go to, concerts, the whole shebang, food, all of the above. Just having friends is expensive. So I had my savings account all set up. I was either putting away 10% of every paycheck or $50 every paycheck, kind of just depended on how I felt at the time. Because again, I really only had my car payment that I was doing, and I was just driving and eating. Like, I didn't have many other bills. My school payments weren't coming out yet. Everything was pretty okay, and I didn't know what I wanted my savings to be for. I was thinking maybe it'll be for more film equipment, computers, my own, I don't know, dog. I don't know, we already had 2 dogs, but I didn't know what I wanted to have my savings for, so I wasn't very particular in like putting away savings. It wasn't a big deal for me. I wish at the time, looking back now in retrospect, I wish it was a big deal for me. I wish I put away savings more and was thinking more about like, hey, let's pay off this car super fast. Like, hey, let's put a lot of money into my student loans so that way when it finally starts hitting, like, I've already been paying for it and it's already gone down. Like, I wish I had thought to do that. I didn't. So now I'm doing it now. So during this time, I'm now 20 years old. I've transitioned kind of my friend groups away from high school friends because they've moved on and we've lost contact, into my current friends, people that I made from work at this time and who is now my best friend, Grace. You guys have heard in the background of some videos before, the lovely lady that I live with. So it was my first Black Friday sale. This, to this date, has been probably one of the biggest money mistakes that I've made and one of the biggest learning mistakes that I've learned. Like, I decided to go Black Friday shopping. I didn't have, you know, a budget for that. I kind of just went and was like, oh, I have all this money in my account, like, I'm fine to just swipe. I didn't have an idea of how much I wanted to spend. I, being the gift giver that I am, of just like wanting to shower people with things, I was like, I'm gonna buy stuff for my family, I'm gonna buy stuff for my best friends. We had like a Secret Santa at work. I'm like, I'm gonna do the Secret Santa. I'm gonna buy all my favorite coworkers some clothes. Like, it's gonna be great. I did it. I felt like freaking Santa Claus that day. But I walked into Forever 21, the very first store we walked into, and I signed up for a credit card. No idea exactly what like percentage rates were or how interest rates, like, I had no idea. I just knew what a minimum payment was, and I was like, cool, dope, I'm gonna sign up for this because now I have a credit card and it'll be great. Granted, I have had a credit card before, the credit card that I currently have, that you see me talk about, the USAA one. Like, I've had that one since I started working at Chick-fil-A. I think like it has this low balance and I was always really good with it. Really only spent it on gas at the time or like emergency food. I learned to just use that for like emergencies and gas. Like, not a big deal. Paid it off like every paycheck. Like, it was perfectly fine. But this Forever 21 credit card had $1,000 like limit, and I was like, yes, I am going Black Friday shopping and I'm buying everyone everything. You get a cardigan, you get a plants, you get a card. I'd be an awful Oprah, but I was gonna give everyone gifts and I was so excited because I could finally do it. I can finally give everybody everything I ever wanted to give them. But I also got in a lot of trouble. Basically, I think a couple months after having the Forever 21 card, I realized I couldn't log into my account to be able to make payments. They didn't have automated payments. I don't know if they have them now, but they didn't have them at the time. And so I had to like log in manually and make the payments every single month on the exact same day. And then I suddenly just like was not able to log in anymore. And so payments stopped being made and my card stopped working. And by the time I could make payments, the interest was so high that basically like my payment didn't even cover the interest. So it took me 2 years to pay off, I think, $400 total of what my Christmas money was that year. 2 years to pay it off. Oh my goodness. The last payment that I made, I remember making the call, being like, yo, put $200 into that thing. Am I done? And the lady was like, yeah, everything's balanced out zero. I'm like, there's no more interest. Like, I'm not gonna have an interest tomorrow. Like, I'm fully done. Yeah, everything's fully done. Great. Close the account. I don't know, she was doing her job. She was trying to do like whatever it is where you don't try to lose customers. She was just like, oh, are you sure? Do you mind if I ask you why you'd like to close your account? I was like, really trying to hold in the anger because I know she's just doing her job and I'm not mad at her. It's just, you know, me and the company that has some beef, and I'm like, I'm just done. I'm just done. And so yeah, Forever 21 took me 2 years to pay off, which is why with my Target card, I am very, very careful with it. It's because I do not want to be a repeat offender. It was a rough time for your girl. I felt so ridiculous during that time, having the debt of $400, and at the time, like, not being able, I remember once making a $200 payment and I still had a lot of money left over on it. And I was like, how in the freaking world do I have, I think, in total, I've paid over $1,000 on that card because I could not get that card paid off in time. It was ridiculous. Biggest mistake of my life. So I learned a lot about credit cards from that time. Moving on a little bit more, I am 20 years old. I graduated school. It's a really fun school to go to, especially if you're like an artsy person here in San Diego. It's not AI, but it's kind of like AI in a bit. I could also do another video talking about my experience there because some things are great and some things were just like not. But that's how it is with every school, I think. Since with that school, basically it's an interesting setup. You have terms and then you take one class every day for a month. So if you end up missing, I think that's the same way with like online schools, I don't know. But if you end up missing like a certain amount of days, you basically failed the class because you've missed like so many learning opportunities that you're so far behind everybody. So I think I had 3 classes that I essentially failed, whatever it was called, because I ended up missing so many days. So there were 3 classes that needed to get paid for that weren't initially covered by my student loans. So I had my student loans that were going to be paid, that, you know, need to start being paid. I think it was like 6 months after I graduated, which I could have started paying sooner. I even could have started paying when I was in school. I just didn't because I was like, if I can put it off, I'm going to put it off. Bad idea. Bad idea. So I had my student loans that were there, and then I also had like $5,000 that I personally owed to my school for those classes that I failed and needed to retake that were not covered by the student loans. I'm sure if I look into like the fine prints of everything, this might not be a normal thing. I really haven't talked to other people about like student loan things that they've gone through. So if this isn't normal, honestly, like, oh well, because I've paid off the $5,000. Basically, as soon as I graduated, I was supposed to start making those payments so that way I could actually receive my degree. I've graduated. I achieved my degree, just the paper degree, to say that I actually did it, to show to people if I want to show it. So to be able to receive that, I had to have everything fully paid off. To be able to walk with everybody, I had to have it all paid off, and I was like, not gonna happen soon because that's $5,000. So right after I graduated, basically almost 2 months after I graduated, my family moved up to where they live now, which is 4 hours north of here in San Diego, into this ranch to start like their own business. My family's doing this ranch for autistic adults. It's really, really cool. Again, could be another video that I talk to you guys about more if you guys want to hear it. It's a really amazing place. I will definitely take you guys there on a vlog one day so that way you guys can see everything, all the animals. It's great, see the land, it's amazing. But we moved up there and I started working 2 jobs again. I was working as a host at a Denny's and I was working as a server at this little mom and pop sushi place. Really great. I was not making a lot of money, but I think I just, again, had my car loan, my student loan, and I was putting off that plat payment, is what I called it, my plat payment. I was putting that off like as long as I could put it off for. But since the town that we moved into was a lot smaller, I had maybe like a 15 minute commute every time. Like, we lived on the very edge of town, and everything inside town where I was working, 15 minutes away. So I was spending a whole lot less on gas. I also never left my house because I didn't have friends, and it's a small ranch mountain community. There weren't a lot of other 20-year-olds. If people who were 20-year-olds were friends, they met each other and knew each other all their life. So it was just a hard place for me as someone coming in at 20 to make friends at. So I just went to work, came home, chilled out. I ate at home. I never went out. This is when I also started tracking my spending and my income because I think I just wanted to track to see how much money I was making and how much I was saving as well, because my main focus at the time was to start saving. I knew that I wanted to move back down to San Diego, so I started doing like a $5 and a $10 savings challenge. I wish I had a picture of it, but I had a shoebox that I wrapped in gold wrapping paper, so that way it looked like a little treasure box, cut a little slit at the top, wrote savings challenge on it. It was so cute and so adorable, and it worked really well for me to be able to not kind of dig in it to pull out those $5 and $10 from it. It was really amazing. I wasn't doing cash envelope stuffing, I was just kind of tracking everything. Okay, so I couldn't find my old notebook, but it basically what started my let's see, my my trackers of what my spending tracker was. It basically looked a lot like how this looks here, with date, shop, item, amount, whether I paid with card or cash. The spending tracker looks so clean, oh my goodness. And then also started tracking my income, because that's when I had 2 jobs and I was finally starting to really get tips for the first time. And I wanted to track to see like how much money I was spending on bills as well, because then I started making my plat payments. So I now had my car, my student loans, and my plat payments that I was making. I wasn't paying rent because I was living with my family. I wasn't going much of anywhere. I wanted to also track to see how much I was leaving the house. Looking at my spending tracker from when I was living at the ranch compared to now, whew, it almost makes me want to move back. Almost. Mom, I know you're watching. Almost. So the year is now that I started making the plat payments was 2018. That was last year? Yeah, that was last year. I started making those plat payments last year. I also moved back down to San Diego. So that was a lot of part of what my savings were for. That's when I really started like going hard at saving the 10% and doing those savings challenges, because I was not only doing the $5, $10 saving challenges, I was obsessed with savings challenges. I was so into it. I thought they were so cool. I was doing like, put $1 away a week. Put the week times 2 is how much you put away that week. 52 weeks. It was a crazy thing, and I was so into it because I wanted to save as much money, because I knew I was going to be moving back down. I wanted to have like first and last month's rent. I want to have deposit, blah, blah, blah. I was not prepared. Let me tell you, I was not prepared. So I decided to move down in April of 2018. And this is when things get, on paper, kind of rough. Internally, it was kind of rough, but I like wasn't aware of how rough it was. I became kind of very apathetic towards my situation at the moment. Basically, I was homeless for a while when I was moving back down to San Diego, which is why it's really important to me right now that I have enough money saved before I move out to Nashville. But yeah, I moved down to San Diego, and I was kind of couch hopping between friends, because fortunately I had friends in San Diego still, but I was couch hopping for about a month, maybe like a month and a half, staying a week, 2 weeks at a friend's house, just kind of looking for a place to live. And I was still paying for my school loan, car loan, gas, because now I was driving around a lot, got my job back at the restaurant. But yeah, gas because I was driving around a lot, food because I wasn't staying at my own place, so I was going out to eat, because as much as like the places I was living at, they would provide meals sometimes, like I wasn't going to ask them to feed me 3 times a day. Like, I'm already crashing on your couch, thank you so much, but I'm not going to ask you to feed me 3 times a day. So I would go out and buy foods, and all my savings basically got used up really quickly. I think I had like $1,700 saved, so that way like all of it basically went towards bills and then gas and food in that first month. And I realized, oh shooty dang, like I do not exactly have enough money to get my own room somewhere that has like the first month's pay, last month's pay, deposit, the whole shebang that comes with like moving to an apartment or moving into a room, renting. I was not prepared. So I ran out of couches to sleep on and I started living in my car, which for me personally, I have always loved the idea of van life. I have always loved Volkswagen buses, and then a few years ago, I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago, starting today, I discovered van life, that people like turn their Volkswagen Westies and like vans, GMCs, and like all the whole like Sprinters. Whew, I love van life, and I do actually plan on joining that community and doing van life myself, but at the time I was living in my car because I was homeless. Like, I didn't have a place to stay. I ran out of places. I didn't have enough friends to ask to stay on their couches, and I was living in my car. I started calling my car, this is when she got her name, Leah the Kia Camper. I was like, her name is Leah the Kia Camper. I actually loved it. I thought it was great. I got so used to living in my own car that at one point I remember going over to Ryan's house. He had some friends over, and he was telling me, he's like, just sleep on the couch. Just sleep on the couch tonight. It's fine. My parents are okay with it. Like, just sleep on the couch. And I was like, I just want to go up to my car tonight. Like, I would rather just sleep in my car tonight. I'll stay in the driveway. It's fine. But yeah, eventually, it kind of got out that I was sleeping in my car, and the people close to me were kind of like, Quinn, what are you doing? Like, stop doing that. Like, stay with me, come here. And eventually Brian had to tell his parents, which was kind of embarrassing, having to tell them that, like, I was living out of my car. He was trying to convince them that I would still do it even if I had the money to not be, which honestly I would still do it if I wasn't living here. Like, if I could move out of here, if my friends and family and people close to me wouldn't judge me for moving back into my car, like, I would do it. Like, I actually really enjoyed it. But it was just kind of like a shameful moment for me to be living in my car when I had to, instead of out of choice. I was doing it out of necessity. So he ended up talking to his mom, because he, as you know, he's on the road a lot, but he lives with his dad, and I lived with his mom for a while. I lived with his mom for like 2 months. Actually, no, I think it was much longer than 2 months. I lived with his mom last year, starting in August. End of August into the very beginning of February is when I moved into here. But she let me live there for free. She is one of the, like, most blessed women that I know. But so she, like, I cannot express my gratitude towards her, but, like, I'm so grateful that she let me live there for free for so long. But eventually got to the point where it was like, I'm living there for free. I need to not be, like, I need to be looking for places. Oh, shooty dang. I can't afford places here because I still only had the one restaurant job. Then in November, I got the second job as a receptionist, and that's when the talks started being more serious of, like, I need to find my own place. So that is when this room became available, because then the sibling that was living in this room moved out, and so I was able to move in. As I've said before, I'm living here with my best friend and her parents. Her parents had other kids. They moved out, and so they started renting out the rooms, and now I commandeered this room. It's really great. If you guys have seen my budget, you know that it's really cheap, which is really great, because they don't necessarily need to be renting out these rooms, but they do, because the dad also is just like the kindest hearted person. The kindest hearted person I know. He is so sweet and so giving and so charitable. It's just amazing. So the timing of me moving into this room worked out amazingly. Basically, it just worked out to where as I got paid off the Platt payment, which, by the way, used to be the biggest payment that I had, that was $450. So $450 a month to be able to pay off $5,000 in a year. So $450, I had my car loan of $427, my school loan of $308, credit card, my credit cards, yada yada, all of that. So by the time I got that paid off, I was like, this is great. I have the $450 left, and I had 2 jobs, and so I was like, this will be great. I'll have so much money. But then I moved here, and I was like, $450, basically the same amount that I was already spending before, but now I have 2 jobs, so yay! And then it became, at December last year, my mom was like, hey, so we still have some, like, I think it was like health insurance money left over that's gonna expire, and we're gonna lose it by the end of the year, so go and get your teeth done. And I was like, great. So now I got this Invisalign payment that started in January. So I'm trying to pay that one off as soon as possible, because now I have more bills than I had before, but I have 2 jobs, so I can pay for everything. This is when the budgeting really started happening. So while I was living with Brian's mom, that's when it really started hitting me, like, okay, I'm no longer homeless, I have a place to live, but I can't afford to move out of a place that's free right now. So I started having, like, mental breakdowns, like all the time. I started freaking out, like, oh my gosh, I can't afford to live here. This is crazy. What did I do? Moving back to San Diego so soon. Like, I didn't have enough saved. I was just like losing my freaking mind, dude. It was a rough time. So that's when I turned to YouTube. And that's when I found this budgeting community. I think first what I found was the Financial Diet here on YouTube. They are amazing. If you haven't listened to them already, they have amazing videos that have helped me out so much. They do reference Dave Ramsey in some areas. If you don't know who that is, he's also like another financial guru. You can listen to his podcast. But they have some differing ideas from Dave Ramsey that are really great to kind of pull from as well. So this is when you can make your budget your own by pulling from ideas and finding what works best from you. So I loved listening to the Financial Diet. So they also talked about the cash envelope system because they were, talking about Dave Ramsey and his 7 steps and all of the blah, blah, blah. But that's when I discovered Alyssa Nicole Budgets here on YouTube. She has been so amazing. Like, she was so great. Like, I was able to understand the system, and that's when I started following cash envelope system. Granted, I followed it very differently than how I do it now. I've adjusted my budget a lot to be able to accommodate like what I need in the moment. Back then, it was so different. Maybe I could show you guys that again in a different video, like what I did before, comparing it to what I do now. But that's when I started doing cash envelope stuffing and started trying to get a hold of my budget more and made it more like my own thing. And that's when I started getting really passionate about it. And then the whole second job, and I was making tips and blah, 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 and now everything is where I am now. I got paid off when I moved into this room here. Worked out perfectly. I now have the room payments, car still, school still, Invisalign, but I no longer have that plat payment. So that was really great to be able to know that I've paid off 2 debts. I'm working on my 3rd one, and then I'm going to be going into my car soon. Oh, it's going to be so great. I'm really excited. I'm also working really hard to save so that way I'm not put in the same predicament as I was last time when I moved cities. Now that I'm moving across the states, hopefully everything will be great. So that is everything about my financial history. Hopefully you guys have a bit of an idea about where I came from, how I got to where I'm at, and then like an understanding of me. So yes, that's that. If you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'm gonna do a Q&A video in the next coming weeks. I don't know, maybe, who knows? I'll probably do it when I'm doing my DIY envelope video, remaking some envelopes here for you guys. If you guys liked the video, go ahead and give it a like. If you guys want to see more of my face and see me try to conquer the human race, go ahead and subscribe. You can find me at all of my social media at QuinneKalyn. You can DM me, we can chat, we can become best friends. I've already made some new friends on Instagram. I'm so excited, you guys. I love talking to you. Side note, somebody finally commented why the audio sounds so weird. I never understood because I was getting comments saying like, oh, I can't hear her. Am I the only one who can't hear her? And I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, obviously everyone can hear me. Someone funny said that apparently my mic only records like on one side. So you can only hear me on one side if you're hearing earphones or headphones. I don't own earphones or headphones, so I never realized. So hopefully I figured out how to fix that in editing so that way you can hear me on both sides. But if you feel like you still can't hear me, that's the problem. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching. I love each and every single one of you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!